Cardinals bust out of their slump in a big way, taking down the Dallas Cowboys 25-22. And in a very impressive way, they put this game out of reach and not back into the hands of Dak Prescott and that high-powered offense. We're breaking it all down, how they got it done, how they quieted this offense, and how they got back on the winning track. What's it mean for the team the rest of the season? We'll get into all of that. It's Locked on Cardinals with Bo and Alex.
You are Locked on Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What a performance. The Arizona Cardinals, big winners over the Dallas Cowboys, and I was actually really impressed just how they put that game away. I can't remember, Alex, the Arizona Cardinals sitting on a lead, 3 points, and their offense coming out and moving the ball, getting the first downs necessary to not even put the ball back into the opposing offensive hands. Very impressive play calling, very good, impressive execution. We saw an option play. We saw Kyler Murray and Chase Edmonds really just salt this game away properly. And the Arizona Cardinals, they end that slump, no longer a 3-game losing skid. They've won a game 11-5 on the season. They beat the Dallas Cowboys 25-22.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury played to win the game with that last drive. I mean, the play call to Christian Kirk, that should have been a touchdown. Like, that was a touchdown play, and Kyler just sailed him a little bit. But the options, you're right, calling, like, what he did today when they needed it the most was just to put the ball in his play caller's hands. Very easy play calls that ended up working out. It was the touchdown in the first half, and then, able to, victory formation is something the Arizona Cardinals haven't seen in a long time. And it got a little tighter towards the end of the game. Dak Prescott led a drive, and, Isaiah Simmons with the play of the game. Isaiah Simmons may have made the 2 biggest plays that the Cardinals have had on defense the last 2 years. Last year, the interception against Seattle on Sunday Night Football, they got flexed due to COVID, and then today, forcing that fumble set the Cardinals up for a win. So, you needed to see something from him, and we were able to. The Cardinals turned the ball over in an opportune time.
Yeah, this is a team that, when you look at the bulk of their wins this season, it followed this blueprint. They win the coin toss. That's complete luck. We're not going to say, hey, that's part of the strategy here, but they win the coin toss. They defer. They put the defense out there to set the tone. The defense gets the ball back. They forced the Dallas Cowboys off the field like they did basically all game long. This was a quiet performance by the Dallas Cowboys. Sure, they made some noise at the end of this game. Amari Cooper's reception for a touchdown. But for the most part, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, they were non-factors in this contest. But Arizona Cardinals play defense. They get the ball in their offense's hand. The offense scores points. And then they get points before the half. And then come out and they're able to perform in the second half. And then really impressed by how they put this game away, ran the clock. As you mentioned, the play calling down the stretch for Cliff Kingsbury made him look very smart. He looked like a very capable play caller, something that people have been knocking him for the last couple of weeks. When guys execute, when guys make plays, like Isaiah Simmons on the defensive side of the football, like guys on the offensive side of the football, Christian Kirk coming up with big plays, Antoine Wesley, 2 touchdowns in this game. When those guys execute, it makes the coaches like Vance Joseph and Cliff Kingsbury look like geniuses.
Yeah, and what's the big thing that we always talk about? One of them is time of possession. Okay, so the Cardinals had the ball for 4.5 minutes in the first half. They ended the game, or in the first quarter. They ended the game with 34 minutes on the field. They had 30 minutes of the final 45 on the field. That's a 2-to-1 ratio, and you're going to win most of the games when you do that. Okay? So, yes, all in all, and okay,
it was mistake-free football.
Here's my thing about Cliff. Okay? He should be fired. No, here's my thing about Cliff is that last drive showed a lot. The Cowboys, I tweeted out that Mike McCarthy was doing some Cliff Kingsbury things with his timeouts. The fact that they didn't have a timeout left blows my mind. That they could, because if they challenge that play, they get the ball. Because Chase Edmonds 100% fumbled that ball. So the Cardinals had some lucky things bounce their way. The Cowboys looked discombobulated. Cliff called an average game. You know, they won the game. They probably should have scored 2 more touchdowns, but they didn't. Kyler Murray missed some passes. Antoine Wesley had that drop. But all in all, I mean, the Cardinals played well, but it was the offensive line. It's Rodney Hudson, and the defense balled out like we've seen them the majority of the time on the road this year.
Yeah, I disagree with the Cliff Kingsbury, what you said about him and him having an average game. That there was plays that were left on the field. Guys still didn't haul in some passes on some key opportunities. Antoine Wesley in the first half, mainly, but he made up for it. Look, this is the NFL. I mean, you're going up against some talented players. Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, we didn't hear his name called at all this game. 11 picks this season. Good job for the Arizona Cardinals to take care of the football. Very opportunistic defense, one of the most opportunistic defense in the NFL. But we can't take away from how masterful I think that Vance Joseph was, how he adjusted to how the league adjusted to him the last couple of weeks. And nobody's really done this to the Dallas Cowboys. I know that Dak has been slumping a little bit, but to take his 2 playmakers out of the game, Zeke Elliott was a complete non-factor. When you think of the last 2 games that Zeke Elliott has played against the Arizona Cardinals, one, he was a liability. He was coughing up the football last time we saw him, and then this game he was a non-factor. Like a tip of the cap to Vance Joseph. I mean, what an absolute just brilliant game plan that he had executed out there by his players.
The NFL is a fickle bee. I've said that, like, there's with how these teams, and I know that the Cowboys haven't been playing well. They've been putting up a lot of points. With how these teams have been, though, trajectory-wise, there is no reason why the Cardinals should have won today in the way that they did, especially. It's such a week-to-week thing, and the Cardinals were the better team on the field for 60 minutes. You know, it's just, it washes away a little bit the Lions. Because, I mean, if you were going to say, going into the Detroit game, if you had to pick one game the Cardinals were going to lose, you would say Dallas, obviously, because, Detroit was a one-loss team. So these are a wash, okay? The Cardinals are going in, they have 11 wins, and as of right now, going into Week 18, if they beat the Seahawks at home and the Rams lose to the 49ers, the Cardinals win the NFC West. So there's still a chance for the Cardinals to come out, and with all of that, they will have a tiebreaker over Dallas, so they'll probably be a 3 seed and have a home game. So, like, this is great. This win is great. It's been huge. And they were a 4th and 5 and an OBJ incredible catch away from the Cardinals leading the division because the Rams should have lost that game to Baltimore. So, all in all, where they are right now through 17 weeks, I mean, it's a dream.
Yeah, the Arizona Cardinals right now, 5th spot in the playoffs. They're behind the Dallas Cowboys because the Dallas Cowboys they're leading the NFC East. The 4 division winners, they get the top 4 seeds. Arizona Cardinals right now 5. But as Alex mentioned, a lot of things can change in Week 18. One more week to go here. As far as who balled out, Budda Baker was an absolute nuisance to the Dallas Cowboys offense in the first half. Didn't have his name called a lot in the second half. I think that was Isaiah Simmons, as you mentioned, coming up with some big plays. This secondary, I know we saw Byron Murphy get burned. Was it once, but twice for TDs in this contest? You had Peterson. He gave up the TD to Gallup, but the 2 on Murphy he was in man, and it was a full all-out blitz on both of those calls. So he was really just kind of on an island, and the receiver ran good routes, and Dak found those guys. So it's tough to kind of knock him too much on that. But as far as who played the best, in your opinion, on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll get into the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, it's Budda Baker. Like, Isaiah Simmons was up and down. Obviously, he had the top heavy game where he had the forced fumble that the Cardinals recovered.
He led the team in tackles with 10.
Yeah, and Zaven Collins, once again, a non-factor. He had 1 tackle for loss, I believe, against Ezekiel Elliott, where he made an appearance. It looks to be not the greatest draft pick at 16, but Isaiah Simmons took a little while to be able to, become an NFL player. Hopefully, that'll be the trajectory for Zaven Collins as well. I mean, but the star, shifting over the offense, the star was the offensive line today. I mean, like, the run game picked up 127 yards rushing. Sure, Kyler got some of those chunk yards towards the end. Chase Edmonds had almost 60 yards rushing. But Rodney Hudson in the middle, it proves to be the biggest offseason acquisition for the Cardinals. When he plays well, when he plays, Kyler's protected. When he doesn't, Kyler isn't. And I think it's as simple as that.
If you look back the last 3 weeks, they've been up 3 sacks. They didn't give up any sacks to the Colts. They gave up 1 today, and then they gave up 2 in Detroit. So, this offensive line is playing at a pretty high level at the right time in the season. And when they do that, it's just when you've got the playmaker the caliber of Kyler Murray, it's dangerous. It's just absolutely dangerous. But it just all worked out today. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys couldn't get out of their own way. They shot themselves in the foot throughout the game. They had far more penalties than the Arizona Cardinals. They had the turnover from Dak Prescott, but to make Dak, fumble that football, to make Zeke a non-factor, for Amari Cooper to have to salvage his fantasy performance with a touchdown, and CeeDee Lamb to have two big plays, one on special teams and one in the pass game. I mean, that's exactly what you want from the Arizona Cardinals. Just a very impressive performance. Chandler Jones had a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Chandler Jones had the strip sack. It was fumbled around a couple times, but I thought Chandler Jones was able to put the Arizona Cardinals in a pretty good position, because you have to consider that Vance Joseph didn't dial up a ton of blitzes, and Chandler Jones and the rotation that they had of Zaven Collins and Victor Dumakaji and Dennis Gardeck were getting enough pressure each and every down to where Dak Prescott looked very pedestrian throwing the football today. Like, he was not dialed in. He missed a couple big throws for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not like the Cardinals were getting that much pressure on him. Like, something's up with that offense. I don't know what it is. Dalton Schultz, they completely went away from him after he ate pretty well in the first half. Like, Kyler's 8-0 at AT&T Stadium. The Cardinals, I don't know. I think it doesn't matter. He hasn't lost in that stadium. Josh Weinfuss, Arizona Cardinals writer for ESPN, just tweeted out the Cardinals are the 10th team in NFL history to win 8 games on the road. Sure, the Cardinals had an extra shot at it because they have 9 games on the road. But at this point, it doesn't really matter who they play if they have to go on the road. At least they're comfortable doing it. Like, it's not like, oh, if the Cardinals don't get a home game, then they're toast. Like, at this point, with how poorly Tampa Bay's been playing, everybody's hurt, people taking their shirts off. With Tampa Bay being injured and Dallas playing like this, I mean, and the Rams not being world beaters either, like, Green Bay is the only team that's really playing well in the NFC. So the Cardinals need to be pretty happy with where they're at. And sure, Antoine Wesley, like, if he can put up, decent numbers and just kind of be the bookend and allow Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore to eat in the middle of the field, like, the Cardinals are in good shape. If they can get anybody back healthy, even without DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner and Chase Edmonds on the field at the same time, Rondale Moore could be a game changer if they remember that Christian Kirk is on the roster and use him. Like, they have plenty of weapons to be able to play anywhere. And we kind of remembered that today.
Yeah, but I thought Kyler Murray elevated his performance today. Mm-hmm. He was firing on all cylinders. There's some great design runs, including the one on second down on the final drive where there was the miss pass to Kirk, and then they dialed that up, and next thing you know, they've got a first down. They're moving the chains, and the offense is moving and churning that clock, exactly what they're supposed to do. But Kyler, before that, he had the 2 touchdowns, 263 in the air, on the ground. He had 44 yards on 9 rushes. It's just, I was very impressed from Kyler Murray. The house that Kyler built, it's now the Jerry Dome. And that's where, if things stand where they are now, if nothing changes between now and the end of week 18, Arizona Cardinals are going to Dallas, where Kyler Murray's never lost a football game. And if you look at the 4 division winners, who would you want to play?
Dallas. Yeah. No, for sure. You don't want to play Tommy. And you don't, you probably don't want to play the Rams on the road, even though you beat them there earlier this year.
What's the least hostile environment? The Jerry Dome. Where have you had the most success? You've won the last 2 games there in the last 2 seasons, and who's the most flawed football team of them? I mean, sure, they've got the ability to put up points, but they're slumping right now. I mean, they're in a tough spot.
Yeah, I mean, it just showed us today that the Cardinals can play good teams and win. That's pretty much what this showed us, because they're a good team. They were the best offense in football, and the Cardinals for 2.5 quarters made them look like they weren't. Yeah. So there are some takeaways here that the run game needs to get reestablished when they need it. But James Conner wasn't on the field. We'll see what they can do with Rondale Moore. There were a lot less trick plays. There was the end around to start the game for 20+ yards. What saved the game today was the fake punt. And the Jonathan Ward catch would have been pass interference anyways, but it was the Chris Banjo pass that really pivoted everything back, and the Cardinals didn't look back. No. So I feel like that was fantastic for the Cardinals, and Matt
Prater getting back on track helps. 4 for 4 in his field goals, having Andy Lee there to kind of settle everything.
The adults were back. All the adults were back.
You made plays in all three phases, defense, offense, special teams. You played mistake-free football, and then on the other side, the other team didn't. And the Arizona Cardinals, they come out victorious. That's how it goes in the NFL usually. 11-5, the Arizona Cardinals right now, the 5th seed in the NFC playoffs. They would take on the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the conversation becomes, if they move up, if they end up taking the division at some point, do you want to face potentially the San Francisco 49ers or the Dallas Cowboys? It's a fun conversation that we're going to have the rest of the way. We're going to have our full breakdown recap podcast. We're going to record that and have that ready for you by midnight tonight. You'll have that for you. But thanks for joining us for our knee-jerk reaction podcast. The Arizona Cardinals, they win. They stop, and the bleeding, no longer a 3-game losing streak, and it's always fun to beat up on Dallas. Take that. How about them Cowboys? They fall to 11-5. Follow us on Twitter at Clancy's Corner, at Bob Brack, easiest way to find me, and at Locked On AZ Cards. We will talk to you the rest of the week on YouTube. Check out our channel. Subscribe. Thanks for interacting. We'll talk to you guys soon.